Why is it that women become disgusted by the men they used to love? Why? How does it go from a man who's the guy that she desired to the guy she can barely stand being around? How does she go from loving your ambition to resenting your work ethic? How does she go from calling you focused to calling you emotionally unavailable? Most men think attraction works logically. If I provide, if I work hard, if I'm responsible, if I'm building a future together, naturally she'll be more attracted to me. But that's not how attraction works. I saw a reel recently from a woman on her 3-year wedding anniversary, and I think it's a great example of exactly the kind of stuff that I teach. So let's watch that real quick, and then we'll do a explainer and a breakdown.
Today is my 3-year wedding anniversary. This has been hands down the most depressing, miserable, horrible 3 years of my life. I've never hated another person more than I hate the person that I married. I run my ass off and I do everything for everybody in my life. He goes to work. That's it. He works. Yeah, his job's hard. Yeah, his hours suck, but he works. That is all he does. I am 30 years old and I'm literally begging for the bare minimum every single day. Yeah, I don't work, but the amount of weight I carry, I can tell you why I've stayed. Money. It's that simple. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And yeah, I know I can leave because trust me, I am leaving. But people can't just walk out and leave one day when you have kids and 12 years of life wrapped up together. You can't just walk away with nothing. In sickness and health, better or worse, no. You gotta have a plan.
So, she said it had been the most miserable 3 years of her life. She said she hated the man that she married. Her words were, he goes to work. That's all he does. Now, a lot of men hear this and immediately get defensive, because I know I did at first too, but then I had to stop myself. On the surface, it sounds unfair. He works, he provides, his hours are long, his job is hard. Like what more can you want? What more can you expect? But if you listen carefully, that's not what she's saying. Okay? What she's actually saying is not that she hates that he works. She's saying that she feels alone. She doesn't feel his presence. She doesn't feel understood. She doesn't feel cared and looked after. She doesn't know where she stands in the relationship. She feels like she exists in a life of her own that's adjacent to his, but not inside of it. She doesn't feel part of that story together. And that is the distinction that matters. Providing without presence is not love, right? That's just basically being a human vending machine. Okay? It starts feeling like emotional abandonment after a while. If you are not there to provide that the focus for her to open up herself emotionally, right? She feels that part of her life closing off, and it makes it feel empty. This is where a lot of guys completely misunderstand attraction. A woman's mind, like scientifically speaking, is like a bowl of spaghetti, right? So everything connects to everything else. You have thoughts that connect to emotions. You have emotions that connect to beliefs and connect to memories, and then memories back to emotions, right? So everything is interconnected and interwoven. So when the attraction dies, however that happens, right, then the entire script gets changed. This is why I talk so much about frame, okay? The idea that it's the lens that you're looking at the relationship through that matters more than the actual dynamics of the relationship itself. The same trait that she loved for so many years, right? She can instantly change and becomes the reason why she resents you. Okay, your confidence to her becomes arrogance, and your calmness can feel like emotional distance, right? Your ambition can feel like neglect, or your independence feels like rejection. It's because you're not showing up the way she needs you to show up, and her impression of you has changed in her mind. Now, nothing has changed logically, okay? Physically, everything is the same, but emotionally, everything is different. The interpretation is different. And that's where the emotional repulsion starts. Okay? The force of attraction is what actually brings her closer to you. It makes her want to be with you. When that changes and that script flips, that feeling inverts itself and she wants to be distanced from you. That's when she wants to break up with you. That's when she wants to divorce you. That's when she doesn't want to be around you. Okay? And it's the feeling that comes first. And she begins justifying it with logic. So that's when things begin to change. She starts attaching negativity to things that she once found attractive. She starts feeling disgusted in things that she used to like before. This is one of the most important things that men need to understand, because this is why it can feel so confusing. That, what are you talking about? How do you hate this about me? You used to love this about me. You've always said that. But now all of a sudden she hates it. Well, that's because the context of your relationship has changed. This is because attraction is emotional first, and logic justifies the emotion. So the logic is really just there to explain the feeling, right? It doesn't actually create the feeling. Like, in other words, when she says, back when she's in love with you and she finds you attractive, she will feel drawn to your qualities, even your bad qualities. This is why I don't care if you're a shitty person. I really don't care. Okay. I prefer that you weren't, but it doesn't matter in the end, as long as you're congruent with who you are. Because if you find a woman who finds you attractive, you can be a 90% shitty person and she's going to love you. Those 90% things, like, she won't even notice them. Okay. Or if she does, she'll think they're positive. This is why I always say women need to feel like she's part of a story, and not just doing things with you, but actually living with you, experiencing things together. The story is not just things like dates and vacations, okay? It's not the physical things that you do together. It is the inside jokes. It's the private flirting. It's the emotional tension, right? The dynamic between the two of you. I made a video on relationship dynamics that really highlights a lot of the different relationship dynamics that you can have, and it'll help you understand just the amount of variety that you can have, that you can build between each other. But it's also the shared memories. It's this connectedness of living a life together. It's the feeling that two of you are building something. And this is where you're going. This is what you're creating. It is your world. Okay? She needs to feel like she has a place in it. If you are always working, even if you're the sole breadwinner, if she doesn't feel like she has a place in your world, she is going to feel alienated. She's going to feel distant. And women need connection. They crave it. Okay? You have to be the one to provide that. And you do that by building a story together. Your mission matters. Your goals matter. Your ambition matters. All of these things matter because that provides the context, that provides the structure of the story and the relationship that you're building together. If she feels like your life is just kind of happening and she's just standing along next to it, kind of like a passenger, right? That's when she feels detached. All right. It feels empty. It feels like she's not involved. Okay. It doesn't feel like connection. This sort of breeds resentment and eventually leads to repulsion. Women need leadership. They need to be led through this story. They need to be provided a safe environment for her to feel those feminine emotions. The leadership is primarily oriented around two things, right? Number one is listening, and number two is direction. Okay. You have to understand her. She has to feel like you genuinely have her best interests at heart. And this might mean you need to go somewhere together, right, as a team in order to build that. But if you're never doing that, if you never have those experiences, there's times that you spend together as a couple, okay, where you're actively dating Like, even if you've been married for 20 years, you should still have date-like experiences, okay? Because that's what 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 founded the relationship in the first place. You need to go back to that. So if you don't do these things, right, she basically feels emotionally homeless. Like, she doesn't know where the relationship is. She doesn't know what she's a part of, right? There's no context for anything. And she feels lost. The example I like to use is, imagine you're in a dark woods, okay? And you've been traveling for hours, okay? You have no idea where you are. And there's no trails, there's no signs, no nothing, okay? And your guide asks you, out of nowhere, where do you want to go? Right? You're going to be like, whoa, dude, I've been following you the whole time. I thought you knew where you were going. Okay. How do you think that's going to make you feel? Right? Well, it's the same thing with women, right? If you don't provide that direction, that the story for her to follow and know where she is, what her role is, what her part is in it, and all the things come with it, it makes her feel lost. Okay. So I know a lot of guys that struggle in leading a relationship because they just don't necessarily know themselves. Okay. They don't know what resonates with them. They don't necessarily know the type of person that they should be and how they need to show up in the world. Okay. To help those guys, I made an alignment assessment worksheet, and it'll help you figure out where there's a gap in your understanding of yourself. And it's free when you sign up for the Men's Lab newsletter. So you can get that with the link in the description. So this is where the whole like LMS, look, money, status, like mode of thinking kind of falls apart, right? So guys think that they're attractive if they have enough money, if they, look good. Okay, they go to the gym and get swole, and they have status, and they have all these people that know them, and they have lots of Instagram followers and things like that. Okay, this guy works hard, clearly. Okay, he works crazy hours. He's a sole breadwinner. He provides. He brings home the bacon. He brings home the money, and yet, not only is she not just unattractive to him, like, I don't really love him. No, she is disgusted by him. Okay, why is this happening? Because it's not the money that creates desire. It's not the looks, money, status, these arbitrary metrics and things. Okay. Now, money specifically can create dependence, right? In her case, right? It creates a sense of security, which can also lead to financial entrapment, right? Which is probably her problem as well, right? It makes it hard to break off because she doesn't have a job. But it's the dependence is not attraction. And this is my message for a lot of guys out there that, just because you have a girl doesn't mean that you're successful with women. If you've been married for 20 years, doesn't make you successful with women. A woman staying around doesn't necessarily mean that she desires you. This is a dangerous mistake that a lot of guys make. And the reality is too, is that a lot of guys that don't understand this stuff, they start trying to do things to try to like please her and appease her and logically make things better. And it just makes things worse. The thing that draws women in is this idea of a shared story and a shared narrative. How do I know this to be true? I have been broke before. I've been very broke, like maxed out credit cards, no money, like literally went to the grocery store to buy lunch. My credit card was declined. My debit card was declined. And yet, that same period of my life, I still never had a problem meeting and connecting with beautiful women. Why? Because I understand what women actually want. I understand the things that most men never learn. It took me a long time to figure it out, but I've figured it out. I know how to make a woman feel like she's a part of something, that I make her feel desire and make her feel heard and listened to. I make her feel sexy and seductive and chosen and that we're going somewhere. That is the hallmark of what it means to be successful with women. That's how you get real success. When you are focused on your mission, it is very attractive, but not at the cost of being one-dimensional like with this man, right? If you neglect your woman, but you call it ambition and say, "Oh, I don't have time for you," right? It's like, yeah, you could get by with that for a little while, but it's not sustainable, right? You go 3 months, 6 months, right? She can understand that. She wouldn't be happy, but she would understand that. ultimately you need to get back into balance where you have your career and you have her, and they are parts of your life that you care for and you nurture in real time, right? And if you spend time working on your career and then you come back and you spend more time with her, make sure that you are, like you're sort of counterbalancing it, right? Even out the scale, spend more time with her. Because the reality is you must return to the average in the relationship. You must return to that emotional presence. You must have that centeredness that she needs, right? The balance is not about softness. It's not being compromising to your own life. Remember, your life is not a compromise. Okay. Balance is about maintenance. You can have lots of things in your life. You just have to make sure that you have enough bandwidth to be able to maintain all of those things. And that's what he didn't do with his wife. And as a result, it took a couple of years, but she fell out of love and began to resent him. Attraction is not something you win once. It's something you maintain. If you fail to maintain it, she won't just feel distant. She's going to start feeling disgusted, okay? It'll start as distance, right? She's going to, I'm not really sure where I stand, right? Like, let's kind of see where this goes. But if it keeps dragging on week after week, month after month, and year after year, eventually she's going to get tired. She's going to get frustrated. She's going to get disgusted. She's going to lose attraction. And eventually, she's going to blame you for the emptiness she feels. And guess what? It is your fault. It is your fault because it is your job as the man to show up and create the story that she needs to feel. That is the hard truth. Okay? It's not because women are irrational. Okay? It is not because of that. It is because attraction is an emotional architecture. It has emotional structure to it. And if the emotional structure collapses, right, it completely changes everything. And everything gets reinterpreted. So what is your real duty as a man? It's not just to work. It's not just to provide. It's not just to be successful, although that is part of it, for sure. Your job, primarily with respect to your woman, is to create an experience, okay? It is to lead her. It is to listen to her, to make her feel wanted and desired, to make her feel like she belongs in your story. That is what women want. I mean, that's sort of the essence of a marriage proposal. Man gets down on one knee, holds up the ring, and says, will you marry me? Will you come with me on my life journey? And she will either say yes or no. But that isn't something that happens one time. That is something that happens constantly. Success without emotional leadership creates resentment. If you spend your whole life working on yourself, but you fail to take care of your woman, right? That creates resentment. Rightfully so. Okay. Provision, like providing for your woman without context, right? It creates distance. Again, you become a vending machine. An attraction without maintenance, okay, will always die. It's almost like a garden. Like you have to weed it. You have to tend to it. It doesn't take a lot, but you have to maintain it. And if you don't, if you become one-dimensional in your career, well, guess what? If you find yourself, with a failed relationship, that's on you, bro. And if that distance has already happened and your relationship has ended, I just did another video recently on how men should approach a breakup, right? When they're trying to rebuild attraction, repair the breakdown. You guys can go check that out. Once disgust sets in and it replaces desire, that represents a seismic shift in how she perceives you. And there's no amount of logic that's going to get her back the way she was. You have to rebuild the emotional story because that's where the real attraction lives. My name is Ethan, and if you're tired of conventional dating advice that doesn't work, I can help. You guys can see the links in the description. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to get future updates. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time.